Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do another colouring video. I really enjoyed the last one, the drag race colouring video that I did. So I thought we could do some more colouring today. And perhaps I could talk a little bit about my mental health journey, because maybe that can help somebody else who's watching this video. Okay, so the colouring book I have selected today is Rainforest Wildlife to Colour. I think this is definitely aimed at children. It's quite simple, but that's fine because I get bored really easily when I'm colouring. So simple is fine by me. So I've had a little flick through and I think I'm going to colour. I've coloured a few of these already. I've had some help from some small people, so that's why some of the colouring looks a bit crazy. But I thought I would colour this banana plant today. So I've selected all of my colours here, and before we begin we'll just read some of the facts. So I like it about this colouring book that you have the facts here. So let's have a look. Bananas. Banana plants originally grew in wild Southeast Asia. Now they're grown for their fruit in over 100 tropical countries. Most bananas are greeny yellow, like these, but some types are purple or red. The fruit grows pointing upwards, but the flower grows hanging down. These parts will grow into bananas, and the flower is known as a heart because of its shape and colour. So there we go. That's the banana plant, and obviously these are the beautiful banana leaves, which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with. Okay, so I think I'm going to start at the bottom. I don't have exactly the same colours, but I've selected the ones that I like, which are most similar. Oh, sorry, I'll just readjust my table. Okay, so let's start down the bottom here. Okay, so I wanted to talk about mental health today because I've been suffering quite a bit recently, and it's the reason why my channel went quiet for a little while. And I've actually found a lot of solace in listening to ASMR videos where other people talk about their mental health. It's nice to know that you're not alone. Obviously, we're not, mental health is a big problem all over the world. There are more and more people being diagnosed with mental health problems every year. I think the kind of world we live in, there's so much stress, there's so much pressure, that it's only set to continue, really. So it's important that people do talk about mental health, I think, because it's definitely helped me a lot listening to others talk. So I wanted to sort of return the favour, I guess, and hopefully help somebody else out. But also it's good to just get things off your chest, and this is quite a nice format where making a video, you can just talk about what you need to talk about. So there we go. There's the flower, or the heart, I've just done. Okay, so I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety probably, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, I guess. But I've suffered a lot longer than that, as far back as I can remember, even as a small child, really. I've always sort of had problems with my mental health and managing my emotions. Never quite felt able to cope with stress and worry in the same way that other people seem able to cope. And I've been frequently told throughout my life by family members that I need to calm down, I need to not worry, I need to let things go, which is all said with the best of intentions, but it doesn't actually help. It just makes you feel more and more like there's something wrong with you, like you're different, and like you shouldn't be feeling the way that you're feeling. So I think my earliest memories of having mental health problems, this one is not so much a memory actually, but something I've been told. And that was when I was very small, probably like 5 or something, 5 or 6, I guess. My mum went through a stage where she was battling a little bit of OCD, and she was obsessively washing her hands, and I began to copy. Now, OCD is something else that I have suffered with over the years. Thankfully, I'm a lot better now than I used to be, and that's thanks to medication. Medication and time, I would say. But I've had a really, really tough time with OCD over the years. Sometimes it's been pretty unbearable and very embarrassing. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. Okay, so let's move on to the flower. I feel like we might have to colour two images today because this is not taking long. So another memory I have was probably, I guess I must have been about 10 years old, and we went on holiday with my grandparents, and Tamagotchis were a thing. They were super popular, so obviously my sister and I both wanted one. So my grandparents bought us one each while we were on holiday, and I think they cost like £3 or something like that. You know, they weren't expensive at all. And so we played with them when we were on holiday, and then, you know, when we got back home. And then I got fed up of it. I was so fed up of it beeping all the time and the constant attention that I had to give it. So I locked it in a drawer. And then one night I was trying to get to sleep and I just couldn't sleep. I was consumed by this guilt that I'd wasted my grandparents' money. And I couldn't drift off. I couldn't stop worrying about how I'd wasted this £3 on this thing that I'd only played with for a few days. So I remember that I got up and I was just sat at the top of the stairs, and I was just really upset. I didn't go downstairs, I just sort of sat at the top of the stairs worrying. I just felt like I'd done this horrible, horrible thing, and that I was such a horrible person for wasting their money. So I just sat there, and then eventually, I think it was my nan, she came out, asked me what was wrong, and I explained, and you know, I don't remember how the conversation went, but obviously she will have reassured me that it didn't matter, but that's always stayed with me. Is it's not that it's not normal, because that's not the right thing to say, but at that age I shouldn't have been feeling like that. And there is a backstory to it, because my mum always struggled for money, and my mum is blind, so I used to help her with the shopping list, and we didn't have very much money at all, so I would add everything up. And if ever we were out shopping and she offered, offered me something, I would always say, "But can we afford it?" So there is, there's context to that. I wasn't just freaking out over it for no reason. It's what I'd come to know, that money wasn't free flowing. But still, that's one of my earliest memories of me not being able to control my emotions, and just freaking out over something which was really relatively small. So that continued as I got older. I mean, my mental health continued to deteriorate, and I would worry excessively about everything. If you could worry about it, I would worry about it. And I tried to manage it as best as I could, I suppose. I sought a lot of reassurance from people, which I always felt like a little bit of a burden, needing that reassurance. And then it came to a point in my life where I was in a job and I was very unhappy, and I was being bullied by my boss. I'd recently gone through 2 breakups. I'd been broken up with by somebody I'd been with for almost 4 years, and then I met somebody else, and I wasn't with him for very long before he broke up with me as well. So I was at a really, really low point in my life, and I just couldn't cope. So I had a complete breakdown, and then I had to go to the doctors and admit that I wasn't okay. And that was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do, and it doesn't get any easier. Each time when I have to go back, I still find it really difficult to talk about how it's fine when I am coping, and when I can say, yeah, everything's good, or not good, but everything is manageable. But when I'm not coping, I just feel this terrible sense of failure that I've had to admit that. So I went to the doctors and I was put on antidepressants, which I wasn't particularly happy about. I never wanted to take antidepressants, but I got to a point where I knew I had to do something, because I couldn't go on living the way that I was living. So I was prescribed antidepressants, and I was also prescribed, so the antidepressants I was prescribed were sertraline, and I was also prescribed diazepam to help with my anxiety attacks and my panic attacks, to help me calm down. But they weren't to be taken all the time, and I don't think doctors give them out particularly readily now. I haven't been prescribed any for a very long time. So I was on sertraline for many years, probably about, 6 years or something like that. I put on quite a lot of weight when I was on the sertraline. I've never had any confidence anyway, and I've often struggled with my weight, but before I went on the antidepressants I was really skinny, because it didn't matter what I ate, I would never put on any weight, because I was just living off my nerves. So I was burning so much energy worrying that I just couldn't put on any weight. So I went really quite small, and then started the antidepressants and put on so much weight. It's obviously not just because of the antidepressants, it's because I was continuing to eat and drink as I had been before, because I wasn't putting on the weight before when I was eating and drinking like that. So, and I think alcohol became a little bit of a coping mechanism as well. So I obviously put on quite a lot of weight because of the binge drinking too. And yeah, my metabolism just slowed massively with the antidepressants. So that completely knocked my confidence. So although my emotions were more in check, and by no means was I, cured with the antidepressants, they did pretty much get rid of my OCD. So my OCD, when it was at its worst, I was suffering from, I think, like 2 or 3 forms of OCD. So I had the OCD where I was afraid of germs and parasites and things. I worked in a pet shop at the time, which was absolute hell. So cleaning the animals out afterwards, I would scrub my hands with the pink stuff that they use at the vets. It's called Hippie Scrub. So I would get it and I would wash my hands, obviously, even though I'd been wearing gloves and everything, but I would wash my hands. Then I would scrub all up my arms. I would go under my uniform, scrub all up my arms. And then I used to wear a watch all the time then. I would scrub my watch. If I had any jewellery on, I would scrub all of that, wash it all with this Hippie Scrub. It's so embarrassing, but even if I had pens in my pockets, I would take those out, I would scrub those, and everything had to be cleaned to make sure there was no bacteria, there were no germs, there was nothing on anything that could spread or cause any problems. I was petrified of fleas as well. I think perhaps I'll do another video at some point where I talk a little bit more about my OCD, because I have a few stories which I'm sure people will be able to relate to. But yeah, parasites is a big thing for me. Salmonella, I was really worried about getting salmonella or giving other people salmonella, so I was very paranoid about cooking chicken and about other people cooking chicken as well in my house. And then I had I used to know the name of all of these, but I don't remember anymore. I used to have the checking form of OCD, so it would take me a long time to leave the house in the mornings, or if I was going anywhere, because I would have to check so many things off. It would be, straighteners, oven, fridge freezer had to be shut, back door was locked, windows were all closed, taps were off, things were unplugged, TV was off. It was really quite extreme, and I'd have to go around several times checking everything before I was ready to leave the house. And my friends used to just sort of make a joke about it, they knew that was just me and that was okay, and they would kind of have a little giggle, and that made it a little bit easier actually. But it was so hard, and I was often late for work because of it, because I'd have to go back sometimes if I couldn't remember checking something. I'd have to go back and I'd have to check again. Front door was obviously a big one. I had to make sure the front door was locked, and yeah, it was hard. But again, I think I might talk about that in another video separately, because there are things in my childhood, I think, that apart from what I said earlier, there are other things in my childhood that I think fueled the OCD. And that I do have lots of stories which, like I say, I think can maybe help other people, so I'll do another video on that one. And I also had the, again, I can't think what it's called, but it's like the what if OCD type of thing, so everything would escalate and exacerbate in my mind, and yeah, I would have those horrible thoughts and questions in my head. So there we go. Yeah, so what I was saying was, so I was on the sertraline, which seemed to manage a lot of the OCD, which was good. Obviously levelled my emotions to an extent. And I was probably fairly okay for maybe 2.5, 3 years after going on the sertraline. And then I had a lot of pressures in work, and I had a lot of problems with family matters, and things started to spiral for me again. And I had a couple of incidents where I just wasn't coping. My mental health started to deteriorate. I had a couple of breakdowns. And then one Christmas, I just really wasn't coping. This was, I think this was 2.5 years ago. And I had another breakdown, and I went back to the doctors and told them that I just couldn't cope. So they signed me off from work. I've always worked full time, and tried to hide my mental health from employers as much as I could, but by this point I couldn't hide it anymore, and they'd known for about a year or so that I had issues anyway. So I went back to the doctors, told them I wasn't coping. They decided to change my medication. I didn't really think anything of it. Thought, okay, maybe this will help. But oh my gosh, they put me on, I can't think what it was called. I can't remember the name, but it was a medication it was a different group to the sertraline. I think they're called SSRIs, the sertraline group. So it was a different group of mental health medication. And it pretty much turned me into a zombie. It made me really unwell. Mirtazapine, that's what it was called. So mirtazapine made me really unwell. Now I know other people who were on it and they get on great with it, so it just goes to show how we're all different, and we have different needs when it comes to our mental health. But it made me really unwell. I couldn't sleep. I'd be pacing every night. I couldn't keep still. My body just felt like it wanted to run all the time. So I didn't stay on that for very long. I think I was on it for about 3 weeks, and I just couldn't cope with the side effects. It was horrendous. So lo and behold, went back on the sertraline, changed jobs as well, and things settled down for a little bit. But ever since then, my mental health hasn't really been that stable, and I always seem to have recurring issues. And then last October, I think, I did try and come off my medication once before and went cold turkey, and it just didn't work, and I went back on it. But last October, I felt like my spiritual journey was going to be able to support me, and I felt like I could probably stop my antidepressants. I forgot to take them. I didn't intentionally stop in the beginning. I forgot to take them, and then I thought I would just see how I managed without them. Just taking herbal supplements and focusing on, my spiritual journey, and I sort of got rid of a couple of things in my life that were causing me problems, which again I'll talk about in another video. And yeah, I went cold turkey, which I know was really stupid. So for a few weeks I had some side effects. I had dizziness and headaches and things like that, but I was doing alright, I suppose. I managed to stay off them for about 5 months. For about 3 months things were okay, and then after about the 3-month mark I really did start to deteriorate quite quickly. The anxiety was creeping back in quite badly, so I was worrying about loads of things again, things that I hadn't really worried about for a long time. I was always focusing on the negatives, which I've always struggled with anyway, on or off medication. And yeah, I was so teary. I got to a point where I was crying every single day. I just couldn't control my emotions at all. I was crying in work, and people were seeing me crying. It was really embarrassing. So about 2.5 months ago, I had to take myself back to the doctors, and I had to admit that I hadn't been taking my medication. I obviously felt like a complete idiot and felt like a failure again, which wasn't nice, but I'm glad that I went back. So I told the doctor that I was a little bit unsure about going back on the sertraline, as towards the end, when I'd stopped taking it, it had been causing me quite a lot of sleep problems. And sleep is really important for all of us, obviously, but if I don't get enough sleep, it really does affect my mental health. I can manage for a night, but when it's recurring, and I went about 3 weeks last August without being able to sleep properly, and it was just horrendous. So if I don't sleep properly, it does have a big negative impact on my mental health. So the doctor this time put me on citalopram. I think that's how you say it. And yeah, I'm about 2.5 months in, and it's helping. For the first couple of weeks, I did have some pretty horrendous side effects. I had no appetite, which was not a bad thing, I suppose. So I did lose some weight. I had an upset stomach, migraines, pretty much all of the symptoms that you could get, I seem to get, but I persevered with it, and then they did subside, and now, things are okay with it. So it has been keeping me fairly level, but I've still been getting my moments. So when I went back to the doctors about 2 weeks ago, and I'd been on it for 2 months, so I asked if I could increase the dose. Again, I got a little bit upset because I felt like what I was on should have been enough. And we need to just not place these expectations on ourselves. It's just silly, and I know that. So she increased my dose, and so far things have been going okay. I had a few days where I actually just felt really quite calm. So this was over the weekend. I just felt quite calm, and despite me having a lot going on with family issues at the minute, I didn't feel consumed by worry, which was refreshing. So yeah, that's a whistle-stop tour of my mental health journey, I guess. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm always available to chat to people who are suffering. I know how important it is to talk, and I find it quite difficult to talk to people about my mental health. It's got a little bit easier over the years, and especially in the last year, I have been opening up more. But like I said, for a long time I tried to hide it because I was so ashamed. And we really shouldn't be ashamed at all. So if anybody would like to talk, I am here to listen, and I'm a good listener. But yeah, please feel free to share your stories in the comments. And I hope that my story has helped somebody at least. Or, if you've been listening to this just to relax, then I hope that you are feeling relaxed. I hope that you're asleep by now, and you haven't necessarily heard me going on about my troubles. But this has felt really good to talk about it. So I'm grateful for anybody who has been listening, for anybody who watches this video. Yeah, so there we go. We've finished the banana plant, and I've brought you completely up to date on my mental health journey. I will make some more videos where I go a bit more in detail about maybe about counselling and different things, about stuff that happened in my childhood perhaps. And then I think I will definitely do the OCD video as well. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for listening today. Thank you for tuning in. It really means a lot if anybody watches this, if anybody listens to my story, and that really does mean a lot to me. So thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye everyone.